Hello and welcome back to the world of Spirit and Shield. As always, my name is John and I will continue to be your guide on this journey. For those of you joining us for the first time, Spirit and Shield is a brand new fantasy world that we are exploring through short stories. Last week we had a short story called First Dance. This week we're going to actually be taking a deeper look at that story. So if you did not get a chance to see it, I'll go ahead and throw a tag up here with a link to First Dance. So go ahead and check it out first, then come back here. There will be a few spoilers, and we don't want to ruin anything for you. So go ahead and check it out, come back, and we'll see you in a bit. Again, I want to thank all of you for your support. This has been amazing having you guys on this journey with me. So thank you again. Love all your comments, all your questions. Keep sharing it with your friends. Let's get some more people on this journey. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. Let's go ahead and start off by talking about the inspirations behind this story and some of the things that led me to write it in the first place. One of the big things, one of the big influences is the fear of failure. And I think that's something that all of us experience on some level in our lives. Whether we're like children, like the characters in this story, or adults, or even older adults. And you ask people like what they're afraid of. You get answers like like spiders, snakes, the darkness, and then you get like some like weird ones like circles or whatever. But no offense to anyone who's afraid of circles out there. So. But the fear of failure is something that rarely comes up, when asked that question, and I think that's because it cuts too deeply. It is a very, very real fear that we don't often talk about because it's almost embarrassing too. Like no one wants to be seen as the one who fails, or even as one who's like that afraid of failing, that they're afraid to do stuff. But like for myself, the fear of failure has prevented me from doing some things that I was probably absolutely capable of doing. But I was, of course, too afraid that, it wouldn't work out, that I didn't pursue it further. And I feel like I'm not the only person in that boat. And of course, in this story, we have our main character, Mishwa, who is afraid of failing in her first spell dance. And in this story, though, that fear of failure and failure itself is something that actually turns out to be a positive thing. One, because she manages to like rise above it and actually succeeds and does very well. But also, and actually more so, because it ends up uniting two characters. Of course, Mishwa and Najira, who saw each other as rivals, enemies more or less. But it's this fear of failure, and Mishwa's seeing Najira's failure and kind of being able to sympathize with her, to empathize. And it really brings them together when really not much else could have. So the fear of failure in this story ends up being actually a very positive force. Not that it always is, of course, but in this case it just happened to work out. Now, this story, of course, focuses on some characters who are children. I have a young daughter myself. She's a little over 2 years old now. And it's interesting being a new father because you start seeing the world in ways that you didn't see it before. And like I often wonder like what my daughter is going to be like when she gets older. And she's at the point where she's gaining a lot of her own personality, a lot of her own fire. And we're starting to see that, but you still wonder. So this story was also kind of an exploration of these different children. I was just kind of curious to see who they were, how they'd turn out, some of their actions. I don't think that one in particular like is my daughter. It was just kind of an exploration. I also used to teach English when I was living in Russia, so I had a lot of experience with children there, and it was great. for the most part. But yeah, just like children's personalities are just so crazy. Like it's amazing. And I found that oftentimes they deal in extremes. Like everything is, the best thing in the world, or like the sky is falling. So I try to kind of capture that, um, like that spirit in this story as well. I'm not sure how well I did, as my first time writing like about primarily children. Another reason that the main characters in this story are children is that I wanted to explore family life in these Kamashaya tribes. The Kamashaya are nomadic, so I have to like rethink a lot of different aspects of their culture. For example, like even just something as simple as how they react to the performances. Do they stand up and clap? Do they sit down, or do they just remain silent? Do they yell? Do they cheer? So I decided, in this society, the adults are going to treat the children more or less as adults. So there we see the bowing, as a show of respect and gratitude. I'm still playing around with the Kamashai. I think there are a lot of different things that I'd like to do with their societal structure and with their culture. So there will definitely be some more stories coming out, so I can take a look at that and kind of poke around there a bit. If there's anything that you guys are interested in particular about the Kamashai, let me know, and we'll definitely get into that. This is also an exploration of family life. I wanted to kind of take a look at the world outside of warriors and wizards. I feel like in fantasy sometimes we get so wrapped up in those things, and like the stereotypical like D&D classes, that we forget to look like outside and take a look at the like the normal everyday people and creatures in that world. That being said, this story isn't just a story of the children. We also get our first exploration of spell dancing, both for Mishwa and for, of course, the readers and myself. And like the inspiration for spell dancing largely comes from a movie that I saw. And I feel like most of you are going to cringe when I even say this, but Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was an absolutely horrible movie, which I own. Actually, I bought it before watching it for the first time. I saw a preview for it in the theaters, and it looked amazing, so I saw it on discount. Couldn't figure out why it was on discount. Picked it up and watched it, and I was unfamiliar with the original series. Like I'd never seen it before, so the movie was my first experience with it, which I think made it much better than it would have been, if I'd have watched the series first. The movie itself is visually very, very beautiful. That is one thing that they did an excellent job with. And the idea of connecting these, like these martial arts katas, essentially, with a type of magic, like that idea like really stuck out for me. And I think it was an excellent move. I don't know who thought of that. I feel like it's probably been done in other places too, like kung fu movies and like stuff like that, connecting martial arts with magic. But the idea of connecting body movements with particular spells, especially like that kind of struck me as something that would be kind of interesting to take a look at and explore a bit more. Like like when you're dancing, you can kind of feel the music and the energy flowing through you. I'm not a very good dancer, by the way, so this is based on amateur experience. But you feel that energy moving through you, and for me, that's almost like a type of magic. So I thought I'd take that a bit further, because that's what we do in fantasy worlds. We take everything and just make it bigger, better. So that kind of leads into the way that magic works in general in this world. And it's largely based on life. I wanted to keep magic more or less realistic, which is kind of difficult to do because it's not a real thing. But I wanted to take natural things that essentially give us like a lot of very strong emotions, take those and make those as basically like magical sources in this world. And we actually see a little bit of that in our first two stories. If you go back and check them out, you can probably pick those points out. But magic in this world comes from life, specifically changes in life. So birth, death, pregnancy. In First Dance, the first dancer, like the professional dancer, she had just given birth to a child, as opposed to giving birth to a dragon. And but as a result, the magic, essentially, that helped her to go through childbirth was still present in her and allowed her to spell dance even more effectively and more powerfully. So that's something that will keep coming up in this world, that idea of very real emotions and very real chemical reactions in the body leading to like greater magical effect. There are no magical stones or magical like artifacts that produce magic from nothing. It's all from life, and I want to keep that as like a basis because I want the magic in this world to feel very real. If you're interested in finding out more about spell dancing, I actually have some additional content on it. It is a beginner's guide. So go and hop over to my Patreon page, and that one is free for everyone, so you can go and check it out. I think it's pretty interesting, goes into a bit more depth. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the Kamashai themselves just a little bit. Again, I'm still kind of exploring the Kamashai and their culture, but basically they're nomadic non-humans. Like they're very closely related to humans, but they're not actually like Homo sapiens. The idea for having, I guess, close humans in this world comes partly from fantasy, partly from archaeology. Of course, in fantasy you have, typically, elves, dwarves, gnomes. I guess goblins could even be thrown in here, but like some intelligent creatures that are very, very closely related to humans, but still separate. And then there's archaeology. A lot of archaeologists now are finding remains of what they believe to be other types of human beings who were, again, closely related, some even close enough to like interbreed with Homo sapiens. But they're finding these different types of human beings, and whether it's real or not, it is a very interesting idea, especially considering like these fantasy worlds that were created before, like the idea of elves. They're basically human, but a little different. So you got to wonder like where stuff like that actually came from. Was there some real basis to it? But either way, I like the idea, so we're going to go with it a little bit more in this fantasy world. And we'll be seeing some more, I guess we'll start calling them close humans. As a loose confederation of nomadic tribes, the Kamashai have a very unique culture. So far, a lot of the inspiration behind the Kamashai is coming from Asia, specifically Mongolia. I don't know that much about Mongolian culture, but what I've seen so far is it's very fascinating. So I think I'll keep kind of, I'm going to say borrowing, but essentially it's stealing, aspects of Mongolian culture and mixing them into these Kamashai tribes. And the Kamashai, it's not just one tribe, it is like a loose confederation of tribes. And we'll be seeing that in some of the relations among the different tribes as well. Some more influence that is going into the Kamashai actually comes from the Caucasus. We see at the beginning of First Dance the saber that Najira is using during her spell dancing. The idea of using a saber or using knives in this like ritual dance, again, unfortunately, that's not something I created. That's something I'm pulling from some cultures in the Caucasus Mountains, as well as like Russian culture in general at this point. Actually, right behind me, I have, not sure how well you can see this, but this is called a Shashka. So it is a curved saber with a very beautiful handle. So this is something that I did just a little bit of research on, but it appears that it originated in the tribes in the Caucasus, like in the Caucasus Mountains, and then kind of spread out from there, even being adopted as an official military saber in Russia. But there's a lot of rich culture associated with, well, with this saber in particular, but also with daggers and knives in the Caucasus. There's even a specific dance associated with this saber. So I'm going to find a video of that, and I'm going to put that down below in the comments so you guys can check it out at your leisure. But the idea of connecting weapons with a dance with magic, it seemed like almost like too good to leave out of a fantasy world. And I'm kind of shocked that we don't see that a bit more, especially given that, you know, fantasy worlds typically take place in a medieval environment where weapons would take on like greater importance. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today was the insult that we see in this story. We see Mishwa calling quite a few characters nettles. Nettles, of course, being the plant that stings you. And like I live in the U.S., we don't really have nettles here, but you know, it's a memorable experience. Here we have poison ivy that's memorable as well, but it doesn't sound as nice, you know, if you call someone poison ivy. Calling someone a nettle, though, for some reason, it sounds like something that, you know, kids would be calling each other on the playground. So I went with that, and actually came up with a lot of other insults that the children use with each other, at least Kamashai children. So if you are interested in learning more about how to insult Kamashai children and how they insult each other, there is some additional content that is for patrons only, but it is up on my Patreon. So if you would like to become a patron and check that out, that is there for you. So on that note, thank you again for all of your support, patrons, non-patrons, semi-patrons, just all of you. Thank you so much for your support on this journey. It really is making the difference for me. So I guess that's actually all we have for this video. Next week, again, we will have a brand new short story. This one, I'm still undecided. It might end up being two different videos. So we'll see. I'm still writing it. It's turning out to be a bit longer than I thought it would be. But either way, that is coming next week, at least part of it. So look forward to that. Continue to follow me on social media. Links are down below. If you feel like it, you know, support me on Patreon. It'll allow me to do this with a bit more ease, and I probably won't look as tired while I'm doing these videos. But either way, again, thank you for your support, and I will see you back here next week for a brand new short story. So until then, take care.